Hey guys, another video from ayahuascaeasy.com. In this one, I'm just going to talk about and summarize an article that I wrote on my blog, ayahuascaeasy.com. It's all about the ayahuasca diet, and it's basically everything that I know about the ayahuasca diet. So it's quite comprehensive. And yeah, basically in this video, I'm going to show you what I've written, give you a quick synopsis, and give you the opportunity to go to the website and read further. I'll leave a link in the description below for you. Yeah, so let's get into it. First of all, I start talking about ayahuasca diet and its relation to medications that you may or may not be on, in particular like SSRIs and other pharmaceuticals used for depression and things. The long and the short of it is that you should aim to be off and have out of your system any pharmaceuticals that you're on before you actually drink the ayahuasca. I've seen one person who's had a bad sort of trip because they had taken an ibuprofen the day before, or possibly could have been the morning of. Could have been the morning of actually a ceremony. So yeah, like my experience is that they don't mix well, and when you research around the net, that is also the experience of other people as well. So I think that's a pretty easy rule to take on board. I've got here a link to the MAPS website, which describes not an exhaustive list, but a decent list of pharmaceuticals that you should avoid. But in general, what they're talking about there are like pharmaceuticals they should avoid because they have a really high risk of interacting with the ayahuasca in a potentially deadly way. But in general, you should be trying to. The aim is to be off any pharmaceuticals, even ibuprofen and stuff like that. It's more the SSRIs and those kinds of things which are sort of in that more higher risk sort of category. So yeah, go to this page and check out the relationship between pharmaceuticals and the ayahuasca diet. The next thing I'm covering here is just why we need to go on a diet. The short answer there is that from the research that I've done, basically there's two reasons why you'd want to go on a diet. One is the obvious reason is to clear out the toxins from your system, such that you, in the ayahuasca ceremonies themselves, purge less and actually have more of a healing sort of experience actually in the ceremonies themselves. And then there's also quite a lot of talk when you research around the net on this about the fact that if you, or the idea that if you undertake a diet or a dieta, the healing which you get from the ayahuasca is a lot more sort of deep and thorough. And yeah, I can't really sort of figure out if that's 100% true or not, but anecdotally, I would agree with that from my own experience. But I've only ever done ayahuasca after completing a diet or a dieta for several weeks. So I've never gone straight into an ayahuasca ceremony without doing the dieta. So I don't have that comparison. But yeah, basically I'm standing on the shoulders of giants in that regard, and just taking other people's advice on that one. But it does make sense to me. This section here is just about how I find ayahuasca recipes, ayahuasca diet recipes, or recipes that are okay on the diet. I have a little bit of a cheat, and that is that the Alkaline Diet, as it's known, the meals and recipes in an alkaline diet are very similar to what you're going to need in an ayahuasca diet. They do require a little bit of tweaking sometimes, just the removal of one or two ingredients or something like that. But in general, they're very close. So what I do is I go out and I find alkaline diet recipes, and then I just tweak them a little bit based off of a couple of lists of things you should be promoting in your ayahuasca diet and things you should be minimizing. I'll show you those links to those two lists further on in the video here. So yeah, basically I'm just describing that there, and then I've got a link there to some alkaline diet recipes that I've used in my preparation for ayahuasca. So you can check that out as well. And then I think it's important to note that I'm not actually 100% strict on my ayahuasca diet. I do the diet for about 3 weeks, a little bit longer sort of thing. I start to get into it around about 4 weeks, and by the third week, I'm probably about 90%, 95% strict on the diet. And then I'm 3 weeks of that, and then every now and then I get, because I do it for so long, I get a little bit sort of claustrophobic of the diet sort of thing, and I need like a little bit of change. So every now and then I do actually eat something that is not strictly on the diet. But yeah, that's the way I do it. If you're doing a lot shorter of a preparation, like 3 days, 5 days, a week, I'd say that it would be quite easy just to be 100% strict on that. But because I do it for quite a long period, I find that me personally, I can't really go that long and be that strict. So yeah, I'm about 90-95% strict for approximately 3 weeks. The next thing I talk about is the difference between diet and dieta. Diet is, the more sort of Western meaning of the word diet, like the things which you eat and drink. A dieta is a Spanish word for diet, but actually includes more things than just what you're eating and drinking. I think a good way to sort of think about what a dieta is things which you consume. So, for example, you can consume music, in that you're listening to a particular kind of music, or you can consume information in that you are reading or listening to particular kinds of information. So on top of things which you are consuming in your food and drink, you can also consume other things as well. So one way to think of a dieta is to think about other things which you are consuming. So basically what that means effectively and practically in a dieta is that you would start to remove certain types of music, certain types of influences, certain types of information, also people. Famously, sex is something that you are recommended to go without for your dieta preparation. So yeah, just be aware that when you're reading around on the net, there is a difference between diet and dieta. Dieta includes more restrictions, and yeah, they're of the nature of sort of having more control over the system of, let's say, energies that are influencing you, and those things can be music, information, sex, people, thoughts, activities, those kinds of things. So yeah, be aware of that. I think it's important to note here that I actually do the ayahuasca diet before and after I've attended an ayahuasca retreat. And in my preparation for ayahuasca, before I had done it, in preparation for the first time I had done it in Peru, I didn't actually learn about this concept beforehand. I was actually told about this as I was leaving the camp by by one of the guys who worked there. He was like, yeah, you should, continue this diet. Actually, it was a dieta because it did include, lack of sex, various kinds of music, alcohol, that sort of stuff. So it was only at that point when I actually was told that, and I did it, and I thought that it did have a big influence on me. The biggest influence, I'd say, would be that the diet beforehand gave me sort of a certain level of commitment to the ceremony, because I treated it very seriously, and did like quite a long dieta. That sort of meant that I was super committed. But then at the ayahuasca retreat, obviously in the ceremonies, you have lots of learnings, and in carrying on the dieta after the ceremonies, I found that that was a really good way of not letting myself fall back into some old patterns that I may have fallen into had I not continued to do the dieta. So I think that's important. An important part of the integration is to do the dieta after ceremony as well. I recommend that you do that, or actually, I should probably say that I was recommended to do that for 4 weeks after I did 1 week of ceremonies, 3 ceremonies in a week. So try and do it for as long as you can, even longer than 4 weeks if you want. But yeah, 4 weeks is a good time frame. I would suggest that, like if you're just doing like 3 or 4 days, I don't think you're really going to get as much out of it as you could. So try to do that for as long as you can. My recommendation there is 4 weeks. I've got some notes there on a 3-day dieta, just in case you didn't have time to prepare for 4 weeks, or you didn't think that you wanted to for some reason. I'm suggesting there that a 3-day dieta is sort of the minimum that you'd want to try, really. But yeah, again, I don't think you'll get as much out of a 3-day dieta pre and post ayahuasca retreat compared to doing several weeks. And I think part of that is also just the mental commitment that it takes to do it for several weeks. Like if you can do it for 3 weeks before and after, that means that you're super committed to the process, and I think you'll it's sort of like part of the environment of taking it really seriously, and being able to really take on board a lot of the learnings and treat them seriously and integrate them afterwards, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's sort of a gauge of like how committed you are to the whole process, really. Oh yeah, so there's another link to some alkaline diet recipes, like I mentioned earlier. I talk a little bit more about food here. This is these are particular like meals that I was made at my retreat, which is called Santuario Huestin, which is in or near Pucallpa in Peru. There's a link to it here on the page. You can learn more about it. So yeah, these are some of the meals that I was served there. No salt, very very basic, just quinoa, vegetables, fruit for snacks in between. That's a nice little vegetable soup there. Lots of lentils, lots of rice, lots of sweet potato, and lots of omelets and stuff every now and then. In this article as well, I saw some people searching around for specific kinds of foods on the ayahuasca diet, so I've just addressed those here. So in particular, smoothies, garlic, oil, honey, veganism, and an ayahuasca diet. An ayahuasca diet is I wouldn't say no. It's not vegan straight out of the box, I would have said, but I think it can be tweaked fairly easily to become vegan. Um, yeah, so pork and ayahuasca, and then here I've got a list. I link to the GaiaSagrada.com website where they've got a list of all the things that you should include and exclude in the diet. And I'm just linking to that there. So the way that this is useful is if you go and follow my system of or my concept of going to find alkaline diet recipes and then adjusting them to become ayahuasca diet recipes, then you can refer to this list to understand which items of food you might want to avoid or take out of the alkaline diet recipes. For example, dates or particular spices or coriander or something like that. That's all on the list there, so you can use that to inform yourself. And then the last thing here is while I was in South America, I learned some basic Spanish, just enough to sort of buy food and get a bus and sort of be a little bit independent. And a lot of the if you're in South America and you don't have very good Spanish and you're trying to like order ayahuasca style meals, um, sometimes that can be a little bit difficult. So here is a list of lots of key sort of diet related Spanish words and English translations that you can use to sort of help you order properly. So, for example, sin carne means without red meat. Sin azúcar means without sugar. So you can say, I'd like, some rice or something like that. Tienes arroz con vegetales, sin carne o sin sal, sin azúcar. So yeah, translation there. Do you have rice and vegetables without meat, without salt, and without sugar? So yeah, you can refer to these to sort of help you order. And I think that's a pretty exhaustive list there. So there you go, guys. I'll leave a link to this article in the description below, and you can read it more fully on the website ayahuascaeasy.com. Thank you. See you.